The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN-TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And we're very happy to have David Christopher with us this hour. He's the author of The Holy Universe, a new story of creation for the heart, soul, and spirit. By the way, The Holy Universe won a silver at the 2014 Nautilus Book Awards, so congratulations to David. You know, every culture needs its creation story, Exonation, with the overarching philosophical base for its underpinnings. But if you're a spiritual but not religious person in America today, it's highly unlikely that you'll resonate with the literal interpretation of the Bible. And if you are someone worried about the feeling of urgency of the world's ethical decline, disregard for the environment, and the growing physical divide, and you see the need for greater social justice and peaceful cohabitation, then Exonation, we have the creation story for you. Or at least my guest this hour, David Christopher, does. And joining me now from California to tell us about the Holy Universe is David Christopher. And David, welcome to the X-Zone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight, and congratulations on your silver winning.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome, and thanks so much for the accolade. I appreciate that. Thanks.
David, what was your inspiration for writing The Holy Universe?
Well, what had happened was, when I was, I left the Episcopal Church a long time ago when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And as most people in our culture, in our Western cultures, I shouldn't say most people, many people in our culture, I just kind of bumped along without any real story. And I felt that kind of lacking. And there was a time, however, when I was working in Silicon Valley near San Jose in California. And I was working for a corporation, making good money, and doing what you're supposed to do, which is get a job, spend money, and continue in doing that until you retire and so forth. And I was reading a book called In the Absence of the Sacred, and the subtitle was The Failure of Technology and the Survival of the Indigenous Nations. And as I was reading it, I realized that I was actually working out in a gym on one of those Stairmaster things in a beautiful corporate campus. They call them campuses now. And it was surrounded by, beautiful equipment, beautiful campus, beautiful people doing all this things around software. And I realized as I'm sitting there and going on the Stairmaster that I can't do this anymore. I am part of a juggernaut that is actually tearing the planet apart, and I can't do this anymore. So that was the beginning of this searching for some kind of story. And about 5 years after that, I ran into a man named Brian Swim and a woman named Sister Miriam McGillis, and they started talking about a different interpretation of science, the mechanistic, going beyond the mechanistic interpretation of science. And I really loved that. I loved the science. I loved the fact they were saying, even the science is saying this is a mysteriously creative universe. We don't know what's going on, but it sure is acting intelligently, and it's acting as if it knows what it's doing. And I really love that, but I miss that story that I grew up with when I was in the Episcopal Church. I miss the sound and cadence of the Scripture. So I wanted the science told in a way that was more poetic, that spoke to my heart, that spoke to my gut, and spoke to that deeper part of the psyche that really loves to hear a story. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the beginnings of this book were.
Your book is entitled "The Holy Universe," and what book does it actually, or what story does your book replace?
The old story, there's actually 3 stories that humanity's had, and the one that we're in now is the story of modern mind. Mm-hmm. And that story at its base, at its core, says we are separate. We are separate from each other. We're separate from the web of life. We're separate from the cosmos. We don't, in a way, we're kind of, we're sort of actors on a play. And what this new story says is that we actually belong here. We are as much a phenomenon of the universe as anything else in the universe. We belong here, and we all come from the same source. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a feel for what this new story is.
All right, David, stand by. You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. We'll be right back. Exonation, David Christopher is our special guest this hour. He's the author of the award-winning book, The Holy Universe, a new story of creation for the heart, soul, and spirit. www.theholyuniverse.com. And David Christopher and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
www.theholyuniverse.com is the website where you can find out all about David Christopher and his award-winning book, The Holy Universe, a new story of creation for the heart, soul, and spirit. David, we had to go to a commercial break, so if we could just continue about the story that your story is actually replacing.
So this is what the sage character in this book calls the story of planetary mind that's now emerging. Mm-hmm. So, and this new story supersedes this old story of this mechanistic view of separation that modern mind has. And this new story, as I was saying, we are connected to the cosmos. We belong here. We are not fallen. We're not flawed. We're not some presence that doesn't belong here. We are an expression of this apparent, vast, intelligent, creative universe. And even science is beginning to agree with what we've kind of intuitively known all along, that we really belong here. Now, on the other side of that, we also have responsibility, that our actions do matter, in that what we're doing now, both individually and collectively, makes a difference in the biosphere. So it's very important that with that sense of connection comes a sense of deep responsibility to what we do to the biosphere and what we do to one another. So that kind of gives you a sense of what the new story is.
Is your book, The Holy Universe, intended to give a new interpretation or an alternative to the Bible?
Well, it's another story. I mean, there is a place for all of our stories, I think. And this one, the difference between this one, and just to give your listeners a little bit of a context, this is what it is. It's a story that is a dialogue between a seeker and a sage, and so the new story is kind of a story within a story. And as they go through the story, they learn about how did humanity emerge out of this creative cosmos. So this story is based on science, and it's not based on mythology or legend, but it echoes those same kinds of that same kind of feeling of those stories. So I don't know that I would want to replace any stories. There's a lot of value in the old, in the ancient texts, in the ancient scriptures, that I would really be hesitant to say, no, we can just let that go and throw that away. There's a lot of learning that we've had. I think the problem we run into is when we say this is we need to take these books literally, including mine. I think any time you take a book as an authority, you start to run into trouble. So planetary mind is kind of what we're, in a way, growing into and growing out of that old need for an external authority for everything in our lives.
Now, what is the core principle of ancient mind, and how is it different from modern mind?
Okay, well, ancient mind is what emerged about anywhere from 100 to 50,000 years ago, depending on which science you look at. And I peg it there because that's when we started really getting into, that's when Homo sapiens really began to get good at language. And we started to tell ourselves stories. And the story of ancient mind was one of connection. And it had to be, because as we emerged out of Africa and came across and migrated across the globe, we had to know which plants were safe to eat, which plants were poisonous, which ones were medicines. We had to know where is it safe to hunt, where is it good to hunt, and where is it unsafe to be, where might we become prey. So you had to be very intimately connected. We had to be very intimately connected with that environment. So we knew we had to be part of this creation, and that's our stories. They came out of that sense of connection. So the basic core principle of ancient mind is we are connected. Earth is alive. Everything within the universe is alive. And even though we're one species of many in the web of life, we are an intimate part of its family. Now contrast that to the story of modern mind, which about 10,000 years ago, when we started getting serious about agriculture and systemic agriculture, we started settling down in villages and then towns, which became cities, and then chiefdoms, and then city-states, and eventually agricultural empires. And throughout that entire history, as we settled down in those particular places on Earth, we started telling ourselves a story of separation, that we are separate from each other, we're separate from the web of life, and we're separate from the cosmos, we're separate from God, or the gods, or the void, or whatever it is. And here is the way, here is this way of getting back into connection. It was interesting as I was studying for the book, and not that I'm a religious scholar, but it really struck me that not all, I would say most of the religions that I became familiar with really started saying, we really don't belong here, and we need to somehow get good with God. We really need to make amends somehow. So that's the story that was created and really got going about 300-400 years ago with the European Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. That we can basically, the earth is ours and we can do whatever we want with it. And we're beginning to see the consequences of those actions.
So you mentioned God in your last few words. Is God part of your book?
Well, actually, there's an interesting part where the sage talks about that with the seeker. And then the seeker asks, well, is there a God? I mean, well, what do you think? And what the seeker says is not quite. For me, the images of egoic beings conjured by the word God or Creator are small, shadowy echoes that do not even begin